You should be live. Did you see it?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, live.
Hold on, let me go and see.
Should definitely be live though. Refresh.
Refresh it again.
Yes, I just hit it.
Okay. There we go.
Hey, can you hear yourself in there? I'm talking about on your phone. What do you hear on your phone?
Yeah,
Do you hear this or do you hear us talking?
I hear this.
Okay. No, because it.
Nope, I hear us talking now.
Right?
I hear us talking.
Come on, number 3. Come.
He woke me up.
Oh, no.
He woke you up.
That thing can touch you, but
telling
one of
you.
them 5s will get you. What's the second one?
He woke
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh my
And
God.
the number one reason,
Number 1. Final answer.
he woke me up
He
this
woke
morning.
me up this
He
morning.
woke me up this morning.
That's a testimony.
That's a
Turn that thing on.
testimony.
I'm on my own, far from home, lost in space, in my zone. I found these truths, far from you, in my space, in a stellar mode. Yeah, I finally got my mind right again. Yeah, now I know there's no time for pretend. Yeah, I come alive in the moonlight. See me shooting across the skies. Don't you know stars were born to fly? I've been searching, crowded, looking for a way out. I've been hurting, falling, but I think I found my way now. I'm on my own, far from home, lost in space, in my zone. I found these truths, far from you, in my space, in a stellar mode. Yeah, I finally got my mind right again. Did it all in spite of the hate. Every time they said that I can't. Nebulas, they run through my veins. Every molecule in the trance. Senses feeling some kind of strange. Damn, I think my name's Spider-Man. Jump out the window and swing for the dreams that just might be. Never gonna let go. No, to the man in the mirror look like me. Drifting through the cosmos, oh, far away from your lies. I realign all my goals. That's a constellation of mine, yeah. I've been searching, crawling, looking for a way out. I've been hurting, falling, but I think I found my way now. I'm on my own, far from home, lost in space, in my zone. I found these truths, far from you, in my space, in a stellar mode.
Yeah. Ooh. I miss your kiss. Oh, your kiss is one of a kind. It feels so nice. Girl, you do it right. I miss. Ooh. Oh, girl, you don't go too fast. You take your time. Just how I I miss. Hey, you can't sit then I'm drifting off your love. Keeps me floating, girl. I miss. And ooh, it feels so good. I wanna come down. Girl, I'm missing that love. Come on. Ooh, babe, I'm missing all those kisses. Baby, bring those lips to me. Oh, babe, I'm missing all those kisses. Baby, bring those lips to me. Come on, come on. Oh, when you're not around, girl, I'm weak. I swear I be hearing things. And if I cannot have you, girl, I'm feeling. Oh, that's such a talent you bring. Yeah. Oh, and days too long. If I can hold you in my arms, if I can find a real good love. That kiss is a drug to me. Baby, your kiss is all I need. Come on. Ooh, it feels so good, baby. Oh, come on. Ooh, babe, I'm missing all those kisses. Baby, bring those lips to me. I miss it already, girl.
Good morning. Good morning. This is Tasha here on What's in It for the Black People Media. This is the show I do, I did, I don't, that focuses on helping you to survive and to thrive and to be well educated if you're thinking about divorce, going through a divorce, or on the other side of a divorce. And dare I say, it even helps you thinking about a plan if you're getting married. So, for how many of y'all did sweetest day to the guys out there? I think I just heard it's supposed to be the guys' version of Valentine's Day. So, for how many of y'all it didn't go the way you wanted it to? Didn't go that way? You want to get divorced now because sweetest day didn't go your way. It's interesting. Sweetest day, hopefully you all had a wonderful day. I really do hope that some of you were treated quite well and doted on. You are generally, first of all, you're worth that. You are worth being treated well, being doted on, being loved, and being shown how much you are appreciated. So I hope that it was a good day for men and women out there who want to be affirmed and want to have that moment. You deserve that. And so I hope it was a good day for you. And for some of y'all, I know it wasn't a good day. And you're like, you know what? See, that's exactly why. This is why right here. See how she acts. See how he don't do whatever. So I'm making light of it. But anyway, I hope it was a good day. And when we think about divorce or we think about relationships, you know, we many times things aren't working, and many times they might not be working for a while. And so we're kind of trying to think about what do we want to do and what's the next step. So for those that are joining this morning, thank you. Thank you for joining. I am going to ask you to like, to share, and to follow each of the pages, What's in It for the Black People Media, as well as follow I Do, I Did, I Don't, the page on the network. And good morning to my best friend on What's in It for the Black People Media, Cassandra. Good to see you. You're always here and always supporting. I so appreciate it. So hopefully we have a good conversation today about, I wanted to talk about a plan. But again, I want you to like, share, follow What's in It for the Black People Media, because there's great content. Some of you were aware of the tailgate for last Sunday that happened for the Chicago Bears. It was a nice event. It was a beautiful day to be out and tailgating. It was nice. It was warm, little breeze out there, but it also was overcast. And so it wasn't difficult having the sun beating down on you or anything, but it was a really nice event. I hope that you are following what's in it for the Black People Media so that you can become aware of events like that and other things that are going on, as well as the content that's on the show. There are on my show, but also on several of the other shows, just some really, really good stuff that's being served up for you. So make sure you're following, and make sure you're following what I do, I did, I don't as well. So let's talk about today. Do you have a plan? So you're thinking about getting divorced. You're not quite sure how to move forward. You're trying to figure out, what do I want to do? When do I want to do it? Do I really want to do it? And so I want you, I want you to just take a pause because you need a plan. And good morning, Tamika. You need a plan. You need a plan before you are going to step out. As one of my friends say, you don't just break and run. You don't just break and run. Some of us do that, and sometimes that's absolutely necessary because we may be in danger. You may have just any number of things could be going on. And so there are times that you need to break and run. But if you're not in a situation like that, take your time. Educate yourself about the divorce process and really understand what this means legally for you, and think about, what are you going to do next? What does it look like for you after divorce? What do you want your life to look like? Because you can start making some of those decisions now. You have a lot of choices about how to move forward. And I want you to operate from a place of power as opposed to operating from a place of victimization, or of you're not confident because you don't think that you can, you do, and you're making a choice to stay simply because, not because you want to be there, but because you don't feel like you have another choice. You do. You absolutely have another choice. You always have another choice, and you have everything that you need to affect the outcome that you want it to be in the end. And so I want you to think about, do you have a plan, and what is that plan? And so there are 3 questions I'm going to ask you. I think that it's important for you to think of first. Number 1, first of all, let me step back. Number 1, do I really want to get divorced? And I think this is one of the questions that is really good for you to tackle with your friends, and to tackle with yourself, but also to tackle with a therapist. And the reason I say that is because there are many times that people think they want to get divorced, but as they talk about it with their friends or with their therapist, many times they can tell you, you're not ready. You're not ready. I don't think you really want to be divorced. I think you're upset. I think you're hurt. I think that you are not in a very good place right now. But I think that you may still love your partner. I think that you may still want to create a life with this partner. And I think that you may still see the possibility of doing that, because there is this dream or this plan or this thought that you have. But many times, even in our anger, there are people who can help us to see beyond that anger. They can help us to see what's really going on behind that. And so many times friends will have you take a pause, and therapists will have you take a pause too. So I think it's a great idea first to have some conversations with a few of the people that know you and that are around you to really help you decipher and discern, do I really want to divorce, first of all? All right. And good morning, Amari. So I really want you to stop, take that pause and think about it. If you have gotten to the point where you're saying, yep, I really want a divorce, I'm not interested in making this work anymore, the other party's not interested in making it work anymore, and I can't do this by myself, this is just not the life I wanted, I don't see a way to create the life that I want with this partner, we just aren't on the same page, whatever that is, you get to the point where you decide, yep, I want to move for a divorce. Now you need your plan. So question number 1, is this going to be contentious or not? Because that question is going to determine so much in the process as you move forward. So does the other person expect that this is coming? Have you had conversation about it and they're thinking, yeah, we're discerning whether or not we really want to get divorced, and both of us are thinking about it, and both of us are kind of there, kind of not. It might be more amicable then in that situation. But do you have a partner who's saying, if you file, I'm not signing it. You can serve me papers or whatever, but I'm not going to give you a divorce. Then this is going to be contentious. Or, is it one of those situations where you've been doing you for a while and you're deciding now, let me just go ahead and cut these ties because this is no longer working for me, it's no longer working for him or her. And so you are the other person's not aware. And so they're going to be quite taken aback and quite shocked. It will hit them. Is this going to be contentious or not? Likely so. Okay, so your plan has to absolutely take into account, first of all, is this going to be contentious? Is the other person expecting it? And who is this other person and how will they respond to that? Because that absolutely will determine how you move forward and whether or not this is going to be a process that can be collaborative, or if it's going to be a process that is more difficult to walk through and it will be contentious, because you want to know that. You want to know that from the beginning. You know more than anyone who your partner is and how they will respond to certain stimuli, right? And so it's important that you think about this individual. What's important to them? What's important to you? How are you going to make this move forward in a way that can be productive for both of you and that can help both of you to settle the estate, because that's what you have to do. And if you're interested in maintaining a relationship, then how do you do this and execute this in a way that's going to allow you to do that on the other side of it? So that's question number 1, is in your plan, is this going to be contentious or not? And if it is going to be contentious, there's a certain path and certain direction you need to take. If it's not, then there's a certain path and direction you can take. Let's just start with, this is not going to be contentious. It's not going to be. You kind of both thought about it. You're both sort of in the place of saying, yeah, I think this is the right thing to do. Now, you can absolutely have a low-cost divorce because you're both agreeing. Neither of you is contesting the divorce, so you can have an uncontested divorce. And it may be a situation where you can file online in order to just have the process go. Or you can file directly with the courts, and you don't need to involve lawyers. You don't need to involve a mediator or anyone else. You don't have a lot, right? So it may be very easy for you to walk through the process in a way that preserves as much of your estate as possible. As much money as you have, you can preserve that, as opposed to paying that to attorneys. Okay, so if it's not contentious, a little easier to walk through, because you can sit down, as they call it, the kitchen table divorce. You can sit down and have a conversation about, all right, here's what we own, which may be in this apartment, this house, and here's how we're going to divide that up. All right, done. Pretty easy to do, especially if you don't have assets. If it's not contentious, you also have to ask yourself, though, what assets are involved? Do you have assets or no? And by assets, I mean, do you have money that's liquid money? Do you have retirement funds? So money that is less liquid, but it restricted in some ways. Do you have inheritances or things like that? Do you have joint property that you own together? Do you have other items do you have a home, right? Do you have investment accounts? All of those things are considered property, and you want to or assets, and you want to think about, what do you have versus what does he have or she have? So many times in a lot of situations, some people are like, you know what, I'm just ready to be done. I'm ready to be done. And I don't care. They can have all of it, or they can have or I'm taking all of it. You have to understand what it is. What is all of it? And do you really know what all of it is to start with? Okay. Because if you decide this is what I know is available and I'm going to move forward, but I know that the other party has maintained separate accounts. I know that the other party has, done a lot of investment work, seem to be doing well. You want to know what those investments are. You want to know what let me say it this way. You may want to know, and you may not want to know, because you may have your own thing going on the other side too. And it may benefit you or not benefit you to know and to share the information. And so it's important that you think about, what assets do I have? What will be at risk in this divorce? What do I risk losing? What do I risk gaining? I guess it's not a risk if if you're gaining, but what do I stand to gain? But what do I also risk losing when it comes to the assets? That's important. So for many people, the very first thing that comes to mind is their home. Do I risk losing this home? And am I okay with that? Is this a situation where I am going to be able to keep the home that I have, the home that I have known and loved and grown up in and raised children potentially, and, had my wedding in the backyard, or, planted the tree for the first baby? All of those things become emotionally important to you. And so you've got to decide, what assets do we have and what do I stand to lose? Because some assets are going to be important because of the monetary value attached to them, whereas others will be important because of the emotional value that you've attached to them. Yes, a home carries a monetary value, but for many people, it's not the monetary value that's important. What's important to them is all of the memories that they've created there, and the fact that they've raised children there, and that, over the years, if they've been in a home 20, 30 years, likely the mortgage is paid, but that's not really what's driving their desire to keep that property. So it's important for you to do that assessment for yourself, that emotional assessment, but also the financial assessment, to understand, what do I want? What do we have? First of all, what are the assets? What will need to be divided? And what do I want out of the process? What am I willing to trade off in order to get what I want? But it is important that you understand the financial lay of the land. Now, why is that so important? Well, number one, you're divorcing, and it really is less of an emotional divorce process, an emotional separation in the court, and more of a financial separation. Yes, there is an emotional component. Absolutely. There are things that you have to work out. The court does not care. The court is not concerned about that part. The court is concerned about, how do we divide these things so that one person gets something and the other person gets something, and they're all going to be able to do well with what they have. So, I did a show a while ago with an attorney, and there were so many financial questions that came up. And one of the comments that he made is like, why is it that this seems to be all about money? And then we're just talking about finances, as opposed to all those other things that are important about, how are we going to get along after this if we need to still stay in touch with each other? How are we going to move and divide these things if we want to maintain a relationship? It's not, how are we going to raise children together if we have to do that? It's not always only about the money. And he's absolutely right in the sense that it's not only about the money. However, within the court system, it is only about the money. And the reason it's about the money, and it's about the children. So we'll get to the children and custody and parenting, allocation, and all of that. But your plan you have to think about, what are the assets? Very first questions the lawyers are going to ask you are, what do you have? You have to fill out a financial affidavit. So you need to know what's on both sides so that it's possible for this to end in a fair way. If you don't know, especially if you stand to gain something, especially if you stand to lose something, you need to understand what that is and be ready to think through what are the trade-offs that I'll make, because you're not going to walk away with everything. You're splitting an estate. You will not walk away with everything that you had before. And so coming to terms with that up front is very important, so that you understand this is going to get split. I'm going to lose some things. I might gain some things. But what am I okay with losing? And what am I okay with having to give if I find myself in that situation? All right. So first question, is this going to be contentious or not? If it's not, you could, this can be an easy process. If it's not contentious and the two of you are just deciding this is what we're going to do, don't have a lot of assets, even easier, right? If there are no children involved, so next question should be, what are the assets we have? What do I want to keep? What am I willing to give and trade off? And then third question is around children and your custody and allocation, what is usually called parenting allocation time. So this is where a little bit more of the emotional part starts to come into play in the court system, right? So up front, whether your marriage is contentious or not, who did what, the court doesn't care. They're like, yeah, great. You're going to separate. Great. We're going to help you do that. And you make the choices, or we'll make the choices for you. And that's what the judge is there for, right? So they don't care. That's why so many states now are no fault states. And no fault states mean it doesn't matter. Basically, the only grounds for divorce anymore in that state are irreconcilable differences. It doesn't matter who did what. It doesn't matter how many times whoever did what. It doesn't matter as long as it's not something that's criminal. That's a whole different situation. But the court has in the terms of divorce, if it's a no fault state, you're just getting divorced. They don't care. But, okay, he cheated on you and he had a pattern of doing this several times. Okay, ma'am, we don't care. Is essentially how this goes, right? She cheated. She had a baby with somebody else, and she's been spending all the money. And okay, sir, great. We don't care. That's kind of how this works for the court system. So you got to know that going in, that it's not going to matter who did what. It's no fault in most cases, and most states are that way now. All right. So then we talked about the assets and what do I have? What might I have to give up? Because it's going to get split. It will not be the same as it was when you started the process. Okay. And then there are children, right? And so again, this is where the emotional piece comes in a little bit more, and who gets custody, which was the old term in most at-fault states and situations, who has primary custody of the children. But if you're in a no-fault state, it's referred to as parenting allocation time. And so you got to think about this, right? If you have children and you have been a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, and you have had the majority of the time with those children, that's not going to happen anymore. Most likely. Sometimes it will. But most likely there will be periods of time that you will be without your children, that because the other parent will have parenting time with the children, with their children as well. And so you've got to get ready for that and understand what you want. Maybe you're in a situation where that other person is absolutely going to fight to have their fair share, and their fair share may feel like in their mind 70% of the time with the children. Be ready for that. Because if you are a mom, and even if you are a mom who is a high-powered executive and you have been working, a ton, and you are making the majority of the money for the household, still, that parent may ask for 70% of the time. And are you ready as a mom to have your children only 30% of the time, which, equates to maybe some weekends and some holidays? If you are a dad, are you ready for that? You may have been in the exact same situation, high-powered executive, less time with the children because you're working and maybe travel for work or whatever that is. And maybe you don't know all of the things that you need to know in terms of taking care of the kids. So you will be finding your way. Are you ready for that? Is that okay with you? Or are you one of those people that's like, you know what? I would rather just let mom have the kids most of the time. I will have my few weekends, my few holidays. Yes, I will pay you the child support because I am not trying to be bogged down with all of the child care issues. And that may be okay with that other mom. Great. 70-30. We're good. I want more time with the kids. You know, you may want more time with the kids, but not really be able to devote the time to caring for the kids in the way that they need. When we talk about homework that needs to get done, or activities that need to happen on weekends or during the week, or, you know, the emotional breakdowns that come at times, or potentially it's all those little things, clipping the nails, cleaning the ears, all those little things that are important that go into childcare that you may say, I'm good on that. And I'm not, no judgment at all here. Everybody works, you know, with what they have and what they want to see happen and what's really going to work for them, because what should be happening is what's in the best interest of the children. Ultimately, what's in the best interest of the children is that 50% of the time with mom, 50% of the time with dad, or if you're in a same-sex relationship, 50% of the time with one partner and the other partner. What is it that you want? You need to decide what is it that you want and how do you want this to look at the end? And what are you going to be okay with? Because it is an adjustment. It will be an adjustment. It will not be the same. You're not going to have all the same things. You're not going to have all the same time that you have with your children. You may come out on the other side and have more time, which could be a great thing as well. So when you're developing your plan, you know, you got to think about, again, is this going to be contentious or not? We've kind of talked through, all right, it's not a contentious process. It's not a contentious breakup. We're getting divorced. We kind of knew this was coming. We're both saying, yep, we know, yep, we agree. Let's just sit down and have this conversation and figure it out. That's one kind of section of the decision tree, right? But then on the other side, you've got, this is going to be contentious. I know this person doesn't want to get divorced, or this person may want to be divorced, but they're going to be very fearful about what life looks like on the other side for them. So if that's your situation, let's talk about this plan. All right. So if that's your situation where the person does not want to get divorced, they are going to fight it tooth and nail. First of all, just understand, no court is going to tell them you have to stay married to them. So that's not a possibility. If you file for divorce, you're going to get divorced unless the two of you decide we don't want to do this and withdraw your petition from the court. Otherwise, the divorce is going to happen. How long that is going to take, how expensive that will be, which is a direct correlation to how long it takes, all of that matters in whether it's going to be contentious or not. Okay. So I think there are different motivations around why it may be contentious. Somebody could just be completely lambasted and hurt and ready, you know, going for blood. Like, absolutely, you will not do this to me. How dare you? I've done X, Y, Z over the years. I have been a good wife. I have made all these sacrifices as a husband. How could you do this and not even care? So you're going to send them spiraling down a whole emotional cycle that's going to be crazy. In those situations, if that is where you are, then I would suggest that you think about upfront, this is what I'm doing. This is a decision I want to make. This is the decision I want to make. And here's how I want to make sure that you're taken care of on the other side of it. Okay. I think it's important to say that up front so that the other person realizes that you're not trying to damage them in any way. You are saying, I want to separate. I want a divorce, but I want you to be well. And after they get through some of the anger and just the impact of what they're feeling, they are going to think about what you said in terms of, here's how, you know, let's do this to make sure that you're okay. Right. Then you can help it to guide it to that other part of the decision tree that's less contentious. Right. because now you're settling. You've given the person time, and y'all give people time. Give people time. If you let's just say your situation is that you've been doing you've been cheating for 2 years. You come and tell the other person, and they didn't know that this was happening. So now they figure that out. They don't figure it out. Either they figure it out. Maybe they do. Maybe they figure it out and they approach you about it. Or you decide, let me just tell you I want a divorce. That's a hell of a lot at one time. They should not get over it by next week so that you can have the conversation that's convenient for you to move on. Let's just be clear. Like, seriously, you would not likely want that process to happen that way for you, right? So you got to understand that you got to give people some time, even when you are coming forward and it's a surprise for them, or you're coming forward with information that's going to be hurtful. Give them time to process. If you give them time to process, likely you may get to a place where it can be less contentious. But if you're constantly trying to come back to them and have the conversation and, okay, what are we going to do? Because you're antsy and you've had 2 years to think about it and they haven't. Now it's been 4 weeks, be prepared. Sometimes you might catch a hand or two. You need to, you have to be emotionally intelligent as you're walking through the process, especially with the other person. If you know your partner, and I think we know them until we're hurting them in this way when we're getting divorced, right? And if it's a contentious process, that means somebody is hurting. Somebody's like, nope. I like the idea of being married. I don't want to be divorced. No. If that's the situation and you know that that's what's important to them, then you're going to have to think about, all right, how do I plan? And how do I present this to this person to help this fall be a little bit easier? Because it's going to feel like a fall. All right. I think that's one of the things that most of the time doesn't go as well, is people just do not approach this with the level of emotional intelligence required. For those folks that I've seen do that, they have had a much easier time because they have given some serious thought to who is the other person, how are they going to receive this information, and how do I make this less contentious? What do I need to do? Do I need to swallow my pride? Do I need to, give them a year to think about it? Do we need to separate and live in 2 different places for a little while we think about it, discern? You might be in one place, but I have known couples that have been apart for years, essentially, and then they have come back together and started over and seem to be making it work. So please approach this. Please know you have to approach this with a different level of emotional intelligence and thoughtfulness to the other party. It's going to make your life easier. It's not just about making it easier for the other person. It's going to make your life easier when you're not fighting over stuff and doing that through lawyers and spending $300 an hour to do that. So, it's very important. I think if you are interested in doing this in a way that is going to preserve your estate and as much of that you walk away with as possible, then approach it with that level of emotional intelligence. Everybody doesn't do that. Some situations are extremely hurtful, and they continue to be hurtful as the process proceeds because of decisions that folks are making. And so, in those situations, then you got to do what you got to do, right? But it doesn't have to be contentious. And many times I think it is because people lie. It's contentious because people hide things. I think it can be contentious because one person wants to take more than their fair share because somehow they think that they deserve that. And I can understand that. That's fair. But what's morally right and what's legally right are 2 different things. Okay. And so you have to understand what is the legal statute in my state and how do I get prepared for that? So let's talk about that just a little bit. The custody thing we were talking about, and that is, it's its own whole difficult part because there's so much emotion tied into it. And there's so much emotion for each parent, but a lot of it is about what do I see for the children on the other side of this? What was already in my head as my dream for my children, and how that was going to manifest in their lives. And now you are jeopardizing that. The other party, they feel the other party is jeopardizing that, meaning whoever wants to get the divorce. Even when the two of you are thinking about it together, there's still this thought and this dream you had in your head about how these children were going to experience life with two parents in the household. And now that's not going to be the case. And so you both got to unravel that too. So it gets highly emotional when it comes to the children and how that process works. But let's talk about understanding a little bit about your state and the state statutes around divorce or dissolution of marriage, because this is how you get prepared. So number one, you want to make sure that you understand what your law says, your state's law says. Is this a no-fault state, or is it an at-fault state? If it is a no-fault state, it is formulaic. So what you have to do to get prepared and to develop your plan is understand the formula. How does this state split assets? Is it a 50-50 thing? How does this state think about allocation of parenting time? Do they think that's a 50-50 thing? Does the state tend to the statutes tend to favor the mom over the dad? You have to be aware of that stuff going in, because the knowledge of what the process is, of what the laws are, that's going to be your best friend. That's going to give you the information that you need to create the plan. So, for example, your state, what matters are both the state laws and the judge that you choose, because the judges have some influence on the interpretation of that law and the application of that law, right? So here's an example. You go in, my state is no fault. I'm going to use no fault because it's Illinois. All right. Illinois is a no fault state. I am going in filing for divorce, and I know that the judge that I am assigned tends to favor the mother, and is usually going to give the mother more parenting time than the dad. But I am the dad filing for divorce, and I want to have half of the time. So already in developing my plan, I know that I have a little bit of an uphill battle with this particular judge, because although the state is no fault and some judges can, it doesn't matter why we're getting divorced, they have a lot of say in how this parenting allocation time goes. So I may decide that it's more important for me as a man to actually make the divorce filing, because then I have a little bit of control over who the judge is that gets assigned to the case. Okay. And I want a judge that's going to be more favorable to me in my position. So again, it's important that you understand the knowledge of how this state works and how the process works is going to be your best friend as you're developing this plan. You have to know. You have to know, because you can put yourself in a good position to do well, or you can put yourself in a really terrible position to really have to fight, to have to spend more money in the process, and to just deal with a ton of emotional turmoil in the process. So know what your state's statutes around divorce, but you also want to know, again, that other person. You want to know who the judge is that's going to be party to this, not party to the case, but that's going to be adjudicating this case, so that you understand how they tend to make rulings, and if that's going to be in your favor or not, because it will matter, right? It will matter. So is this the kind of judge that no matter what you do, you can show as the dad that you have had the children most of the time, you've been a stay-at-home dad for all of your life? And I'm really favoring the guys today. I know, because most times I'm talking about the women, and so today I'm thinking a little bit more about the guys. Maybe it must be that sweetest day energy that's going on. But if you've been with the children most of the time, you've been a stay-at-home dad, and your wife has traveled. Let's say she's a consultant. She's traveled for all week, most of the time. She's home the weekends. So you have the majority of the time with the children in this child care, and you want to keep that, but you're going to file and potentially get a judge who's going to say, nope, it's 50-50. You won't get that time. And your concern could be, well, is my soon-to-be ex-spouse actually going to have the time to care for the children? Maybe, maybe not. And so now I have to have this conversation. Look, let's figure out how to make this work. I know that you travel. You're going to be on the weekends. Why don't I keep the kids during the week? And you have the weekends, and then we can figure out how to split holidays. That might actually work for that person. And so you can propose that. Again, the emotional intelligence with which you approach these conversations is very important. It's emotional intelligence because it's also the practicality of what does life look like? How is life still going to look on the other side of it or be different? And we still have to make this work. And so what's going to work for one person, what's going to work for the other person? It may be the first year you say, I'm going to keep the kids, during the week while you travel for work, and then you have them on weekends. It could be we do that for the first year until you work things out. And so you have to, you just got to think about it because it can help you a lot in how you approach this. And I think that, honestly, is the thing that is the biggest issue within divorces, is that people just don't approach it with the level of emotional intelligence, the level of forethought and planning that it deserves. And then you find yourself in situations and you're trying to unravel it and figure it out. So go ahead, cuss the person out with your friends, in the shower, in the bathroom, into the pillow, whatever you need to do, so that then you can have a more productive conversation that is really going to help you get to the other side of this in a way that maintains your spiritual, financial, emotional, mental, and physical health, because that stress will kill you. The stress that comes along with the divorce is unreal, even when it is a divorce that the two of you have agreed upon, because your entire life is being rearranged now. Most times you're moving, your financial situation is different. You've got to figure that out. Your time spent with the children, everything that is now going to be it's going to be different. And so it's highly stressful, and that will impact you physically as well as emotionally and mentally and spiritually. And so you have to, you really, really, really just want to do yourself that favor. So you have to have a plan going into this. It is super important. I'm wondering what questions you guys have around planning, because I want to make sure that I'm giving information that is helpful and sharing information and thought starters for you. But also, I'm sure there's some more specific questions that people might have about what they should consider in planning. And one of those things is, who files? Right? Who files for divorce? And is it better for you to be the person to file it for it or not? And I don't really know. I don't really know the answer to that. I think it may depend at times on if you're thinking about, do I stand to get the judge that I want in this case if I file? Now, understand that changes sometimes too. So in my case, in getting divorced, we were assigned one judge to start with, and that judge got reassigned to a different courthouse. And so then a different judge was assigned, and they operated pretty differently. Maybe you're thinking, okay, I want a woman judge because I think they're going to favor me, even though it's no fault. They may, they're still people too, right? So it might matter to that person that I was cheated on, and I have kids, and I've stayed home, and I've made all these sacrifices. They are still people and human who are going to hear. They're going to hear the information, and it will create an impression. And I don't know if that has some bearing on how they rule on some of the things. It shouldn't. But the reality is we're all human beings, and we there are certain things that are going to influence us that might hit us in a certain soft spot, and we consider that. So I do think that defiling, whether you file or not, does have some, there could be some strategy there around helping to put yourself in a good position if you are the person that files for divorce first. So, we've talked about a lot here, and I have been going on and on and on, and I am almost at my hour, and at the end of this time, which happens so quickly. It's amazing that once I start talking, that hour goes so fast. But again, if there were questions out there, I'm actually going to check, even though we're still live. I'm going to check and see if there were any comments or questions that came up, so that I can address some of those if they are there. All right, so Cassandra says, my ex-lawyer was his friend, and because he was paying little to nothing, he dragged it out, which cost me a lot of money in lawyer fees. Wow, that, again, one of those things, that's one of those situations that makes you think about, okay, well, how do I do this? And what's my strategy? Because maybe my strategy is, I know this other person is just going to be unfair and they're not going to want this to happen and they're going to drag it out. Maybe I can find a friend to be my attorney and it's going to cost me less. And my strategy is I need to bleed them dry in terms of money so that they can stop fighting me and this can just happen. There are all sorts of things that you have to think about, and all sorts of strategies and ways that attorneys will work through these processes, and that you need to think about too, because it becomes this negotiation now. It is a negotiation, and you are really thinking about game theory when it comes to it. If you don't know what that is, I just look it up and figure out, but it's about how are you going to put yourself in a position to win, if you will. And because that's sometimes how the divorce goes when it is a contentious divorce. Is one person is looking at how do I win and not lose. And so it's a win-lose kind of situation, and you have to think through that now, and you have to deploy some different tools. And lawyers are skilled in game theory and understanding how to negotiate and how to actually position things so that they can move things forward and get what they want out of the process, which is good for you if you've got an attorney that's going to do that. I don't think I see any other questions on here. So I'm going to wrap this up and kind of land this plane and just say it's vital. It is vital that you have a plan. If you are going and headed toward divorce, if you are thinking of filing yourself, you need to have a plan on how you're going to attack this. And the plan requires you to understand and have knowledge of your state's laws, number one, whether your spouse in the emotional state that they can be in and how they tend to think about things. So it requires you to know your state laws and have some awareness of them. It requires you to think about whether this is going to be contentious or not and how you have to approach it if it is contentious. It requires you to understand the financial picture for you and the spouse as you are moving toward divorce, because that will be a big part of the divorce proceedings. And then it requires, if you have children, that you understand, that things are going to be different. You have to figure out, what am I okay with? What am I not okay with? What am I willing to negotiate to get what I want? Because that's how this is going to play out. Your life will look different at the end of it, but that doesn't mean that there has to be a deficit. It can look different and still be a wonderful life for you. And in the process, as you are planning, you can start taking the steps that you need in order to create the life that you want on the other side. So maybe you want to change careers. Maybe you want to re-enter the workplace, and you have the ability to start planning, to start creating your goals, to start doing the training or networking or whatever that is, get brush that resume off, get it updated, all of those things that you need in order to be successful on the other side of it. You have time. You have the time, and you'll have some space to start creating what you want that life to look like. So it's important that you do that and that you have a plan, because your plan is going to empower you. It is going to make you feel like less of a victim in the process, and it will make you feel like you have some control over what's happening. There's a lot outside of your control, but you can control what you can control. And if these are the things that you want on the other side of it, then you can start creating that. So this has been Tasha with I Do, I Did, I Don't on What's in It for the Black People Media. I hope that this was great information for you. And I share this. I want you to be well on the other side of it. So think about plans. Think about what you need to do. Hit me up on the I Do, I Did, I Don't Facebook page if you're looking for more information or thought starters, or just to kind of think through it, talk through it. Happy to do that for you, because my goal is that you will be better on the other side. Take care, y'all, and I'll see you again next Sunday.
I press decline and you keep calling me. Give you some love and you want all of it. I'm out here working, nigga, get a grip. I'm just trying to touch a million, you just wanna coexist. I say you clingy and you contradict. Give you my heart, you think it's counterfeit. Give you my word and you won't trust in it. What's the point of loving me if you don't know what trust is? I need the is you give now. Please don't back down on me. I know you've got the attention I need. Put your pride aside for me. Oh, 'cause I need that ease. Put your pride aside for me. That ease. While I'm out trying to get that ease, know that I need that ease. Put your pride aside for me, baby. You're insecure, it's driving me crazy. I'm trying to get it and you keep on saying it. All my love is never enough. I put up with you for too long, now I'm over it. You want affection, I need money, I'ma call it quits. That ease, that ease, that ease. Put your pride aside for me. That ease. While I'm trying to get it, that ease. That ease. Put your pride aside for me. Side, put it aside. Put it aside, put it aside. Put it aside, put it aside. Put your